Good morning. It's Tuesday, July 11th, and tonight is the All-Star game. But I talked about that yesterday. I'm not really interested in the All-Star game. Today I want to talk about the Ukrainian war, which has now reached its 503rd day. And I want to talk about how slowly the U.S. and its partners reacted to this situation. It was a piss-poor execution of defense. Allowed the Russians to build up a huge force on the Ukrainian border without threatening the Russians or anything like that. And now the U.S. has finally decided it's going to send cluster bombs. Now, cluster bombs are a very lethal weapon, and they probably should have been introduced immediately. But we're taking such a cautious approach to this thing. We don't want to upset Putin to the point of nuclear activity. And I don't blame us for having those fears. But there has to be a way around it that we should have been able to show him and his forces that we meant business. And that goes for the United States, the European Union, and anybody else who was one of our allies in this big fight. So we're now finally releasing the cluster bombs. And the Russians have been using cluster bombs from day one. So if they're using that bomb, why are we hesitating? Why are we worried about killing more Russians or making them the corpses that they should have been from the very beginning? This war, this special military operation is a disgrace from the defensive point of view. We did not do enough to put Russia on the spot. We issued weapons with instructions that they can't be flown in such and such an area. They can't go this far. They can't do that. Is that the way you fight a war? Is that the way you fight a war to win? We didn't fight a war to win. We have been fighting this war as an exercise in futility instead of going out there to crush Putin's regime. And the sanctions didn't do any good. And he's getting help from other nations. China, Iran, nations like that are on his side, on Putin's side. All China didn't really come out and say that. But they haven't condemned him either. And you've got Iran sending him missiles and drones and things like that. Iran, and we're going to talk to them about a nuclear deal? We're crazy. Absolutely crazy. Our diplomacy sucks. We should have been standing and fighting with the Ukrainians from day one with everything we possibly had. And I'm not only talking about the United States, I'm talking about the European Union and those countries also. And believe me, Ukraine needs those cluster bombs because President Zelensky has acknowledged that while he is making progress, it is going much more slowly than he or his generals imagine. While the Ukrainian forces have held on to the initiative in certain areas of the country, it's not working that way all around. And Putin and his forces have continued to bomb civilian areas without any thoughts about human life or anything like that. So the Ukrainians are advancing. They're not stuck, but they're not advancing quickly enough. And so while they would love to see this counteroffensive accomplished in a shorter period of time, it is not going to happen. Even with the cluster bombs, it's not going to happen so fast because the U.S. and its allies have let Russia gain a certain amount of territory that they are holding on to. And the death toll from Russian bombardment in the Ukrainian city of Lyman was a disgrace. 10 or 12 people died, dozens of people were injured, and it's going to go on all over that country as long as we hesitate. So hesitation and thinking of different ways to accomplish the end of this war without truly fighting, without putting any muscle into it, is not going to work. And you have Russian officials proudly saying that their air defense system shot down 4 missiles. 1 over the Crimea and 3 over Russia's Rostov and Bryansk region. And no casualties were reported. Isn't that wonderful that the Russians can come out and say something like that? And we're worried about giving them cluster bombs. We should give them more than cluster bombs. We should give them everything they need. We've got to end this thing and end it in a way that Russia pays the ultimate price and that Putin gets his ass kicked out of his head office. And get this, the Russian spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, condemned the U.S. decision to supply Ukraine with cluster munitions, saying it was aimed at prolonging the war. See, they don't believe they're going to lose this war, and they're worried that the cluster bombs are going to prolong the war. Well, they should be worried about prolonging this war because it was supposed to be only a special military operation. It was supposed to be over in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And now it's in the 503rd day. And this woman comes out and says, we should be ashamed of ourselves. The United States should be ashamed of ourselves for sending the cluster munition. And I'll tell you why we should be ashamed of ourselves. Because it took us so long to get off our asses and do something important. Do something vicious. Do something that's meaningful. Do something that is going to hurt the Russian Empire. What I am disappointed in is the fact that we did not attack their oil fields. That they couldn't figure out a way to do damage, real damage to Russia's economy by destroying the oil fields. No, we're going to sit back and we're not going to take any Russian lives and we're going to get the shit kicked out of us. Well, we're not going to lose the war, but we're going to be nothing but a downtrodden nation after this is over. Suppose Russia backs up and they run away, but they've left Ukraine a total mess. Is that what we want? Is that what anybody really wants? And then we're going to spend billions and billions of dollars rebuilding that country. And we should. We should pay that money because we're stupid. We didn't attempt to stop Russia as fast as we could. You know, history has told us exactly what happens when you allow dictators to tell you stories. All of us should remember the story that Chamberlain said there would be no war. And the next thing we knew, we were fighting for our lives for 5 or 6 years in the early 40s. So this is a prime example of sitting on your duff and doing nothing and not acting quickly. This is what you get. Death and destruction over a long period of time before it ends. And it will end, but it won't end well. So think about that. History repeats itself. Have a great day.